I was sitting in a windowless interrogation room under the humming buzz of fluorescent lights, watching two federal investigators whisper to a county prosecutor across the steel table. Outside those concrete walls, my billionaire boss was holding a live televised press conference on the courthouse steps. He was shedding rehearsed tears for the news cameras, publicly branding me as a reckless, disgruntled ex-felon who had deliberately sabotaged his facility and nearly killed 30 innocent warehouse workers. He truly believed that my past gave him absolute, untouchable authority over my future. He thought that because I had a single conviction on my record, the entire world would take his word over mine without asking a single question. What Julian Vance did not realize was that for 3 agonizing years, every dangerous shortcut he forced me to take, every counterfeit safety valve he ordered me to install, and every vicious midnight threat he left on my voicemail had been documented, time-stamped, and uploaded to a military-grade, encrypted digital vault. When I finally slid my unlocked tablet across that cold metal table, the lead investigator did not reach for his handcuffs. He picked up his desk phone, locked eyes with the federal marshal standing by the door, and gave a simple, terrifying order: lock down the municipal airport and ground Julian Vance's private jet immediately. 7 years ago, my life fell apart due to a single desperate mistake. I was 22 years old, completely broke, and drowning in tens of thousands of dollars of medical debt after my mother lost her long battle with illness. Desperate to keep a roof over my younger sister's head, I took an under-the-table cash job reprogramming engine control modules for an auto salvage ring. I had no idea the vehicles were stolen until the state police raided the garage on my 4th week. I did not make excuses, and I did not try to dodge accountability. I accepted a plea agreement, served an 18-month sentence at a minimum security facility, and resolved to rebuild my life with absolute honesty. While inside, I spent every available hour in the facility library, studying mechanical thermodynamics, industrial electronics, and commercial refrigeration engineering. By the day I walked through those prison gates with my release papers, I had earned my master technician certifications with near-perfect test scores. But out in the civilian job market, those paper credentials meant almost nothing. Every corporate human resources department filtered out my resume the moment they saw the background checkbox marked. Dozens of commercial HVAC and logistics firms slammed their doors in my face before I could even explain my qualifications. Then came Vance Global Cold Chain. Julian Vance owned and operated the largest network of sub-zero temperature distribution terminals in the region. His facilities spanned hundreds of thousands of square feet, storing perishable foods, critical medical vaccines, and temperature-sensitive biological supplies for global corporations. Vance had a very specific hiring strategy. He deliberately recruited skilled parolees and ex-offenders. He did not do this out of charity, social responsibility, or a belief in second chances. He did it because a person on conditional release is the easiest employee in the world to intimidate, exploit, and control. When Vance brought me into his high-rise office for my final interview, the air in the room felt suffocating. He sat behind an enormous polished marble desk, impeccably dressed in a bespoke Italian suit, looking at me with the detached amusement of a man inspecting an insect. He did not ask about my technical skills, my diagnostic certifications, or my work ethic. Instead, he slid a thick manila folder across the smooth stone surface. Inside was a complete breakdown of my parole requirements, along with a pre-written, signed statement claiming that I had embezzled thousands of dollars worth of copper piping from his facility during my preliminary assessment. Vance leaned back, resting his steepled fingers against his chin, and spoke with a chilling, measured cadence. He said, "Let us be completely transparent with one another, Ethan. You are an exceptionally gifted industrial technician, but You must understand that you are not here as an equal employee. You work whenever I call. You keep my compressors running at any cost. And you never question the decisions made by this executive office. If an inspector ever raises questions about maintenance shortcuts, or if you ever think about quitting, this affidavit goes directly to your state parole supervisor. One single phone call from my legal counsel, and your parole will be revoked instantly. You will spend the next 5 years finishing your backup sentence in a state penitentiary. A sickening coldness settled deep in the pit of my stomach. The blood roared in my ears, and my hands clenched into tight fists beneath the desk. Every instinct inside me screamed to lash out against the injustice, but the image of my teenage sister, relying on me to pay her tuition and keep the lights on in our small apartment, forced me into complete submission. I swallowed my pride, buried my anger, looked directly into his cold eyes, and nodded quietly. Vance smiled, convinced he had completely broken my spirit. He assumed my compliance was born of pure helplessness. What he failed to realize was that from that very second, I stopped seeing him merely as an employer and began treating him as an active, high-risk operational threat. For the next 3 years, my life was a living nightmare of grueling labor and psychological terror. Vance treated our massive 400,000 square foot Newark terminal as a personal cash-generating machine, diverting millions of dollars meant for essential safety upgrades into his offshore real estate investments. The heart of our facility relied on industrial anhydrous ammonia, an incredibly efficient commercial refrigerant, but one that is also violently toxic, corrosive, and lethal when pressurized systems fail. Standard federal safety regulations require that whenever an ammonia line develops microscopic stress fractures or metal fatigue, the entire zone must be isolated, vented into neutralizer tanks, and repaired by certified master welders. Julian Vance refused to allow even a single hour of operational downtime. Whenever an emergency pressure warning tripped in the dead of night, my phone would vibrate with an incoming call from his private executive line. His voice would come through the speaker, venomous and sharp. "Ethan, the primary chiller loop in Sector 3 is dropping pressure again. Do not shut down the line. I want you to wrap an epoxy structural sleeve around the pipe, place a manual bypass wire on the high-pressure emergency sensor, and keep those compressors running at maximum capacity." Every single time, I would try to warn him about the catastrophic dangers. "Mr. Vance, that line is rusted to paper-thin tolerances. If the discharge pressure spikes, while that emergency sensor is bypassed, the mechanical relief valves will blow wide open. We will vent thousands of pounds of lethal gas right into the warehouse floor where 30 pickers are working." His response was always a ruthless, low whisper. "You listen to me, you worthless convict. You do not tell me how to manage my balance sheet. You jump that circuit right now, or by 6 o'clock this morning, the county sheriff will be knocking on your door with a felony larceny warrant. You have 45 minutes to get that loop running." Every time he hung up, I stood in the freezing, deafening roar of the compressor bay, my hands shaking inside heavy rubberwork gloves. I realized very quickly that simply hoping to survive the job was a foolish strategy. If an explosion or a fatal leak ever occurred, Vance would immediately destroy his internal emails, point his finger at me, and claim I had performed an unauthorized, negligent repair behind his back. The legal system would believe the billionaire philanthropist, and I would be thrown into a maximum security prison for manslaughter. So, I made a silent vow to protect myself and the innocent workers around me using the only weapon I had: total, unassailable documentation. I began constructing a hidden, comprehensive, evidentiary record of every single illegal directive. Utilizing my advanced electronics background, I purchased an industrial-grade, military-grade data logger with a separate battery backup. During a scheduled weekend maintenance shutdown, I slipped inside the primary electrical transformer vault and wired the logger directly into the master motherboard of the facility's programmable logic controllers. Every single temperature reading, every dangerous pressure surge, every manual safety bypass, and every sensor fault was recorded every 3 seconds, permanently burned onto solid-state memory with an unalterable hardware timestamp. Next, I set up a dedicated, offshore cloud storage environment secured by multi-factor cryptographic keys. I installed a background application on my personal phone that automatically recorded every incoming and outgoing phone call in high-definition, uncompressed audio. Whenever Vance sent an email or a text ordering me to violate safety codes, I immediately backed up the complete raw server headers to preserve the digital chain of custody. Whenever he forced me to execute an illegal patch on a failing ammonia condenser, I wore a covert high-definition body camera secured inside the chest seam of my reflective work jacket. The footage clearly showed the deep structural cracks in the steel, the peeling corrosion on the main manifolds, and the counterfeit inspection stickers that Vance had purchased from a corrupt private compliance firm. For 36 months, I endured his daily insults, his arrogant mockery, and his constant threats. Whenever he visited the plant in his immaculate designer suits, stepping carefully around oil stains and treating our maintenance crew like second-class citizens, I kept my eyes fixed on the floor and answered him with polite, respectful deference. He genuinely believed he had turned me into an obedient servant who lived in constant terror of his power. Then, on a freezing Tuesday morning in late November, the catastrophic event I had spent years anticipating finally occurred. An extreme cold snap swept across the coast, creating violent thermal contraction across the uninsulated roof-level piping of Sector 2. At precisely 3:15 in the morning, the primary discharge manifold on compressor bank 4 suffered a massive structural failure. A high-pressure jet of pure anhydrous ammonia blasted across the plant room, instantly triggering the highest-level concentration sirens. The alarms screamed at over 300 parts per million, a concentration level capable of causing chemical blindness and fatal lung damage within 90 seconds of direct exposure. I was sitting in the maintenance shop, completing my shift paperwork, when the deafening emergency horns echoed through the steel rafters. I did not run for the exit. I immediately smashed the glass cover of the master emergency purge station, activating the general facility alarm to warn the 35 warehouse pickers on the loading dock to evacuate into the open parking lot immediately. Then, knowing that the main storage vessel could violently rupture if the pressure continued to build, I pulled on a heavy Level A chemical hazmat suit, locked the seal on my self-contained breathing apparatus, and pushed through the heavy blast doors directly into the toxic white fog. The plant room was completely engulfed in a blinding cloud of stinging chemical vapor. The sound was like a roaring jet engine, fighting against the zero visibility conditions and the intense, freezing cold of expanding gas. I dragged myself along the steel catwalk until my hands found the seized manual shutoff wheel of the main isolation valve. My muscles burned with exhaustion, and the rubberized suit fought against my movements. But I gripped that frozen iron wheel with every remaining ounce of strength in my body. Inch by agonizing inch, I turned the valve until the metal finally seated into the lock position, cutting off the fuel supply to the leak and venting the residual pressure safely into the neutralizing water scrubber tanks. When I finally stumbled out through the loading dock doors into the biting morning air and tore off my breathing mask, my entire body was trembling from pure adrenaline. Every single one of the 35 warehouse workers was standing safely in the designated assembly area. Nobody was injured. Nobody had lost their life. As 5 local fire department trucks and regional hazmat units pulled into the facility gates with sirens screaming, I collapsed onto the tailgate of my work truck, convinced that the nightmare was finally over. The authorities would inspect the shattered manifold, recognize the severe structural corrosion, and hold the ownership accountable. I had severely underestimated the depth of Julian Vance's depravity. At 8 o'clock that morning, 3 sleek, black luxury sedans pulled up past the emergency perimeter tape. Out stepped Julian Vance, flanked by 2 high-priced corporate defense attorneys and a public relations consultant. He did not ask if any workers were hurt. He did not even look at the freezing, damaged warehouse. Instead, Vance walked straight toward the district fire marshal and the regional police captain, pointing an accusing, trembling finger directly at my face. His voice was loud, dramatic, and perfectly pitched for the local television news cameras that had just arrived on the scene. "That is the man you need to arrest, Ethan Cross. I brought him into this company straight out of prison, giving him an honest wage and a second chance at life. But he has been stealing high-grade copper valves and safety fittings from our mechanical infrastructure to sell on the black market. When my internal audit team informed him yesterday that his theft was discovered, he intentionally tampered with the high-pressure manifold during the night shift to cause a catastrophic accident and destroy the paper inventory logs. Arrest him immediately for criminal sabotage and attempted murder." Before I could even stand up or utter a single sentence of defense, 3 armed police officers pushed me down against the freezing hood of my truck, pulled my arms roughly behind my back, and snapped heavy steel handcuffs onto my wrists. As they dragged me toward the rear of a police cruiser, Julian Vance walked over, leaned down toward my open window, and whispered through his teeth with a sickening, victorious smirk, "I warned you years ago, Ethan. My word is gold in this city, and yours is absolute garbage. You are going to take the entire criminal fall for this facility, and you will spend the rest of your miserable life rotting in a concrete cage." I did not scream. I did not struggle against the metal restraints. I simply looked into his eyes with complete, unblinking stillness. They took me directly to the County Central booking facility, locking me inside an interrogation room for 7 long hours. Eventually, the lead detective entered the room alongside an official investigator from the Federal Chemical Safety Board. They dropped a heavy binder onto the table in front of me. The detective spoke in a grim, matter-of-fact tone. "Julian Vance has just provided our department with 3 certified maintenance work orders bearing your signature, dated 2 weeks ago, stating that you had personally inspected and cleared those manifolds as completely new. He also provided security footage of you working inside the parts depot late at night. The district attorney's office is currently drafting an indictment for commercial arson, 20 counts of attempted manslaughter, and aggravated reckless endangerment. If you go to trial on these charges, with your prior record, you are facing a minimum sentence of 45 years without parole." I leaned back against the hard metal chair, took a slow, deep breath, and let out a quiet sigh. For the first time in 3 years, the crushing weight of anxiety that had lived inside my chest completely evaporated. A calm, steady smile touched the corners of my mouth. I looked the detective dead in the eye and said, "Detective, did Mr. Vance explain to you how the internal electronics of his refrigeration control systems actually operate?" The detective narrowed his eyes, clearly surprised by my calm demeanor. "What are you talking about?" "I am telling you that Julian Vance has handed you forged documents," I replied evenly. "Those paper maintenance work orders were printed less than 4 hours ago in his executive office suite. Check the digital watermark on the toner and the thermal timestamp of the paper stock. But more importantly, detective, I want you to look at real evidence." I leaned forward toward the center of the table. In the glove compartment of my personal vehicle, which is currently parked inside the employee lot at the terminal, there is a secured, military-grade ruggedized laptop. In my front jacket pocket, right now, is my encrypted smartphone. Hand me my device. Allow me to enter my cryptographic security credentials, and I will show you 3 continuous years of unalterable, forensic reality. The federal safety investigator looked intently at the detective, gave a slow nod, and reached across the table to place my phone into my hands. I entered my two-factor decryption key, opened the remote connection interface to my offshore server, and patched the live dashboard directly into the high-definition display monitor mounted on the interrogation room wall. For the next 2 hours, the room fell into absolute, stunned silence. The only sounds echoing off those concrete walls were the crystal-clear audio recordings of Julian Vance's own voice, captured across dozens of separate phone calls. The investigators listened to the call from 8 months prior, where Vance could be heard screaming, "I do not care if the secondary discharge line is vibrating off the ceiling hangers. You put a jumper wire on that emergency pressure sensor immediately. If you call a county inspector, I will contact your parole officer and tell him you threaten my family with a weapon." They listened to another recording from 4 weeks prior, where Vance explicitly commanded me to purchase counterfeit, non-rated Chinese pressure valves instead of certified American-made components, purely to save $75,000 on an operational budget. Next, I opened the 4,000-pixel body camera video archive. The federal agents watched in silent shock as high-resolution video showed the severe corrosion, metal thinning, and structural fatigue on compressor bank 4. In the footage, I held up that day's newspaper to definitively authenticate the date and time, while Vance stood directly in the camera frame, pointing at the cracked iron manifold and saying, "Slap an epoxy patch over the seam, paint it with industrial primer, and wrap it in insulation. Nobody will ever notice unless the entire block ruptures." Finally, I presented the real-time, hardware-level telemetry pulled directly from the hidden transformer vault logger. The unalterable millisecond data proved beyond all mathematical doubt that at precisely 3:15 that morning, I had manually activated the emergency toxic gas scrubbing protocols and risked my life to secure the primary containment valve, while an automated corporate IP address traced directly to Vance's private penthouse apartment attempted 3 separate times to remotely cancel the alarm signal in order to prevent the local emergency services from being notified. The Federal Chemical Safety Board investigator stood up from his chair, his face pale, with intense professional fury. He looked at the local detective and whispered, "This is not a case of employee negligence. This is calculated corporate fraud, widespread witness tampering, and premeditated industrial reckless endangerment." The detective walked over to my chair, unlocked the steel handcuffs from my wrists, and stepped back with deep, visible respect. He looked at me and said, "Mr. Cross, you are entirely cleared of all suspicion. In fact, if you would like to step out into the main lobby, you are going to witness something you will remember for the rest of your life." Outside the Justice Complex, Julian Vance was reaching the grand climax of his public press conference. He stood proudly behind a battery of 20 television microphones, his face contorted in an exaggerated display of grief as he spoke about how his family-owned enterprise had been victimized by an untrustworthy ex-convict. Dozens of news cameras were broadcasting his speech live across the entire state. "We will rebuild our facility stronger than ever," Vance proclaimed with soaring theatrical confidence. "And our legal team will ensure that dangerous criminals like Ethan Cross are locked away where they can never threaten our community again." Before he could finish his sentence, the deafening scream of 8 emergency sirens shattered the morning air. 4 unmarked black federal sport utility vehicles, followed by 5 state police interceptors, tore around the street corner at high speed, screeching to an abrupt halt and completely barricading Vance's chauffeured luxury limousine against the sidewalk curb. A dozen armed federal marshals and special agents from the Environmental Protection Agency's Criminal Investigation Division moved up the courthouse steps with lightning-fast, militarized precision. The entire crowd of journalists gasped in shock. The television cameras instantly swung around, abandoning Vance's podium to capture the sudden tactical raid. Julian Vance's fake smile instantly froze on his face. His voice cracked with confusion. "What is going on here? Officers, the suspect you are looking for is being held inside the booking department." The lead federal marshal walked straight past the microphones, pulled a thick sheaf of federal arrest warrants from his tactical vest, and seized Vance by both arms with an iron grip. The marshal's voice boomed across the public square. "Julian Vance, you are under arrest pursuant to a federal warrant issued by the United States District Court. You are charged with 18 felony counts of Clean Air Act violations, 5 counts of interstate wire fraud, 3 counts of felony witness tampering, and 20 counts of aggravated reckless endangerment." Vance's face transformed from arrogant composure to an ugly, mottled shade of crimson. He began thrashing frantically against the agents. "Do you have any idea who I am? Call my defense attorneys. Get your hands off me. Ethan Cross is the criminal. He is a convicted felon." At that exact moment, the heavy glass doors of the courthouse swung open. I walked down the broad granite steps in my work jacket, standing shoulder to shoulder with the chief fire marshal and the county prosecutor. Julian Vance locked eyes with me. His mouth fell wide open, his eyes bulging in pure, horrified disbelief. "Cross!" Vance shrieked, his voice breaking into a high-pitched, desperate squeal. "Why are you out of custody? What did you do to my company?" I walked down the steps at a slow, deliberate pace, stopping just 3 feet from where the federal marshals were forcing his arms behind his back and ratcheting heavy steel cuffs onto his wrists. I looked down at him with complete, unshakable calm and said, "I kept the digital black box, Julian. Every single phone call, every bypass, wire you ordered, every forged inspection sticker, every threat you made against my freedom. The federal grand jury has all 400 gigabytes of it." The absolute reality of his total destruction hit him like a physical blow. The smug arrogance drained entirely from his features, replaced by a vacant, paralyzing terror. He understood in that single fraction of a second that his wealth, his political connections, his private aircraft, his real estate empire, and his untouchable social standing had completely evaporated into thin air. As the federal agents pushed his head down into the back seat of an armored transport vehicle, dozens of camera flashes erupted against his sweating, pale face, broadcasting his total humiliation to millions of viewers across the country. The legal and financial destruction of Julian Vance was swift, historic, and absolute. Within 72 hours of his arrest, federal regulatory agencies issued emergency, shutdown, and asset seizure orders against all 14 cold storage terminals owned by his conglomerate across 6 different states. A comprehensive forensic audit revealed over $50 million in deliberate safety evasion, forged compliance certificates, and fraudulent corporate tax filings. Vance was officially denied bail after federal prosecutors demonstrated that he had his private jet fueled on the runway, prepared to flee to an international jurisdiction with no extradition treaty. Following a 4-month jury trial, Julian Vance was found guilty on all 32 federal and state felony counts. The presiding judge sentenced him to 26 years in a federal maximum security penitentiary, with 0 possibility of early release or parole. Every commercial property, vehicle fleet, and luxury residence he owned was seized by court-appointed trustees and liquidated to fund an 8-figure restitution settlement for the hundreds of warehouse workers whose lives he had recklessly endangered for corporate profit. As for my own life, justice took a form I could never have imagined during those dark years of fear and exhaustion. Under the provisions of the Federal Whistleblower Protection Act and the Clean Air Act statutory relator recovery laws, individuals who provide original, decisive evidence exposing massive environmental crimes and corporate fraud are legally awarded a percentage of the total recovered civil penalties and seized assets. 14 months after Julian Vance was escorted into a maximum security prison cell, the Department of Justice finalized the financial asset forfeiture proceedings. My official legal share of the recovered penalties came to $5.4 million after all taxes and fees were cleared. The very first action I took was paying off every remaining cent of our family's medical liabilities, followed by establishing an irrevocable educational trust fund that will ensure my younger sister never has to worry about financial security for the rest of her life. The second action I took was attending the court-ordered public auction for the massive industrial terminal in Newark, the exact same facility where Julian Vance had threatened to destroy my life. I purchased the entire 400,000 square foot property with cash. I spent the next year gutting the decaying plant room down to the concrete foundation. I ripped out every single piece of corroded, dangerous piping, replacing the old system with cutting-edge, green carbon dioxide and low-charge refrigeration architecture that exceeds every modern industrial safety benchmark in the world. Today, that facility operates proudly under the name Cross Environmental Logistics. More than 40% of our certified engineering and maintenance technicians are men and women who have successfully completed transitional rehabilitation programs after leaving the correctional system. They receive fair, industry-leading wages, comprehensive health benefits, and safe, dignified working conditions where their voices and safety concerns are always respected. People who rely on wealth and power to bully the vulnerable always operate under the same arrogant delusion. They believe that an individual who is struggling is an individual who is powerless. They mistake quiet patience for weakness, and they assume that fear will always guarantee total submission. They never understand that when an honest person is pushed into a corner with nothing left to lose, their commitment to the absolute truth becomes an unstoppable force that can bring down the tallest empire in a single day. If this story reminded you that real justice always catches up to those who abuse their power, please leave a like on this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever seen an arrogant bully get hit by instant, undeniable karma in your own life? Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned for more incredible stories of truth and ultimate redemption. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.